Ephesians 5:21 through 28 gives the rules on marriages. And it begins with that horrifying line, wives, submit to your husbands. What does that really mean? That's the conversation today, live in the Bible study on View from the Pew.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 244-0077. That's 244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, welcome. It is a gorgeous day. We thank you for being here. It's the Bible study in which I just gather people like you, like me, just regular people. You're driving down the road and you're listening and you're going, oh, that'd be cool to be on a radio Bible study. Well, you're welcome. In our new studios, we have plenty of room we could put a worship band in here. 17 by 14 green room. We could put a worship band in here. We could put a whole pack of wolves. We could do whatever we wanted. And so you're always welcome. It's your voice I want to hear in The View from a Pew here on 99.3 The Truth. So I have posted this for several weeks now that today we were going to tackle. I mean, Jimmy, when we decided we would start these, we kind of hit the hard stuff right up front.
Right.
Yeah. Let me see. We did forgiveness, and we did Hebrews on prophets. We did Mark on running the pigs into or was that Luke? Mark running the pigs into the... Yeah. So we don't start with the lightweight ones, and today will be no different. Now, I want you to know that I invited several, what I would say...
upstanding,
outspoken, speaks their mind, good Christian women, to come in and join us on this. Sarah Keebler, for one. And my wife for another, but you'll never get my wife on the radio. My wife's been on the radio with me, I think once, and I think that was by accident. I think she was walking through the mall or something. I don't know. Anyway,
be fun.
So today we're on 5. I'm going to start at 21, but it basically goes 21 through the end of 33. And I actually have done some show prep on this.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Just reading beyond. I've got several good writings, one by Sandra Clements, who is a pastor, on some of the stuff that they talk about. Now, let's read the beginning of the verse, and then you can get an idea of what we're talking about. And I'm going to read from the Living Bible. I've got 4 versions here. Frank, you've got what? King James is yours?
I don't have one, but I can give one.
You don't have you came to a Bible study without a Bible? Well, good heavens.
Well, if he's on my computer, it's New King James.
It's New King James. All right. So, you can have a Bible. I've got a Bible. All right. So, Ephesians 5, we'll start with 21. Honor Christ by submitting to each other. See, the women never start with 21. They start with 22. Because 21 says, honor Christ by submitting to each other. Then, Paul goes on to explain in the letter to Ephesus, you wives must submit to your husband's leadership in the same way you submit to the Lord. For the husband is in charge of the wife in the same way Christ is in charge of his body, the church. He gave every life to take care of it and be its Savior. He gave his very life, to take care of it and be the Savior. So, you wives must willingly obey your husbands in everything, just as the church obeys Christ. Okay, I can admit, if I was a female, if I was a wife, I'd be bristling a little bit right now.
There's much more to the story, though.
Yeah, once again, let's go to context. Let's keep reading. Now, we'll back up. We'll back up and talk about that. And you husbands, show the same kind of love to your wives. The same kind of love that Christ showed to the church, he died for. To make her holy and clean, washed by baptism and God's word, so that he could give her to himself as a glorious church without a single spot or wrinkle or any other blemish, being holy and without a single fault. This is how husbands should treat their wives, loving them as parts of themselves. We'll go on and read a little bit later on. Now, I will tell you that one of the definitions in the original Greek word for submit, it is not to obey. Let's make this real clear. There is no quote unquote, to obey anywhere close to submit or in the Greek. The closest thing in Greek is to listen,
Wow, cool.
to simply listen to your husbands. And hopefully we're not against that. Now, oh, Frank, you're a little old school, aren't you? I would imagine submit means a little something more to you than it does to the average guy.
Well, I'll ask you a question.
All right.
Should a woman submit to a man if said man doesn't submit to Christ?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Good point.
But that can't be that's not a teeter-totter or a yo-yo thing. If 1 minute she feels he's not submitting to Christ and says that I don't have to submit to you, and then later that day or the next day he is submitting to Christ, so therefore she submits to him, that's a dangerous game in a marriage. That is a no-win situation in a marriage.
Well, people get married, and it's supposed to be forever. It's a covenant, much like the covenant between Christ and his people, Christ and his church. So if we're in this covenant, it's till death do you part in good and in bad. So you accept the good with the bad, and when there's bad, you deal with it. You deal with it by separation. You don't immediately jump into divorce. You don't immediately jump into having other physical partners. You deal with the problem at hand. And so I would say that if a woman has an issue where the husband is being a little abusive and overbearing.
Well, now hold on. Let's back up. Abuse. There's no room for abusive, physically or emotionally. Now I know emotionally is tougher. Because what one person feels would be emotionally abusive, another might consider being kidding around. You know, and I won't mention their names, but I've got some friends of mine. They love each other deeply. I don't know how long they've been married, 35, 40 years, 2 grandkids, 2 great kids. But every time he gets a mouthy, she says, I got a gun in my purse and I'll use it. And sometimes she talks about how in the middle of the night she wakes up and sees how she could suffocate him with her own pillow. Now, in a regular world, we all know she's kidding. Unfortunately, in this PC world, if that woman would turn around, if that man would end up being suffocated or shot by someone, she'd probably be a witness, or not a witness, a possible person that did it, person of interest. That's what they say. So, I interrupted you, but let's be careful on the abuse thing.
Well, I think you were talking too about belittling. Is that what you were going with
Yeah.
that? And I think it's so tragic that couples sometimes will belittle one another in front of other people. And I think sometimes they do that kiddingly, you know. But it is like that teeter-totter thing where if you can push her down, then you're kind of elevated. And that's wrong, absolutely wrong. You're always trying to lift your wife up and praise her and honor her.
Yeah, well, sometimes I think couples bring their little arguments into a public setting,
And that's wrong. Yeah.
and they try to divide groups and people and
Get people on your side.
yeah,
and-
especially like with kids or grandkids or son-in-laws or daughters-in-law. That doesn't work very well.
Absolutely right.
Would you agree that
No.
that certain men have taken advantage of this text?
Oh, absolutely.
absolutely, right.
Absolutely.
Many a man has made a wife's or a woman's life a life of toil and burden by being an overbearing cad.
Right. And the problem is with our culture.
You resemble that remark, do you?
I have in my life.
All
yes.
Well, the problem is with our culture, we're a soundbite culture where we are proof text culture among Christians, where we take that one verse, we hang it out there on its own, and then we think we can make a point with it. But as we've read, and as Max read here in context, this is from the wife's perspective, and this is from the husband's perspective, and it's all to honor Christ, right? And if each partner is looking out for one another's best interest, then ultimately Christ is glorified in that marriage.
Jim Bear is here, and we also have Frank the Verse Thomas and Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat. Ryan's producing, and I'm J. Michael McCoy, if I haven't told you lately. Thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. All right, so I'm on a website called God's Word to Women. I mean, I wanted to make sure that part of my research on this was not gotten from the white supremacist Christian organization for yay men. Obviously, I didn't want to get it from Islam or somebody who doesn't hold women up to be evenly yoked. And I think in this society nowadays, obviously there are some exceptions, but women are held to be equally yoked. And quite frankly, I would be really worried if I had a pastor, if I had multiple pastors trying to direct me that something in the Bible told me that I was always supposed to be a couple yokes above my wife when it comes to evenly. Right. I'd be very uncomfortable with that. I'd be very uncomfortable with, well, I'm glad Jesus didn't say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Marriage is a win-win
Yeah.
for both, you know. And again, when you're 100% committed to your wife and she's committed to you 100%, everybody wins.
But in too many situations, Christ is not the center of that marriage. Mm-hmm. And many times we find that you've got unevenly yoked couples getting married. Mm-hmm. She or he, unfortunately, usually she, is a believer and a follower and has a personal relationship with Christ, and she thinks she can fix him. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's just not a female to male or a male to female. I think that's just part of a codependent relationship.
Well, I think I talked with a Christian bookstore once, and they said that the majority of books and Christian material is bought, the majority, like 75% of the materials that go out the door are bought by women.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean they're not buying for their husband. I mean, if my wife came home and brought me a book and said, I'd like you to read this, and it said how to be a better husband, I'd read it. Mm-hmm. The wife is always right. I'd probably read it.
Yeah.
Would you rather be happy or right? I'd probably read it.
Yeah. But I think
in fact, I'd be less likely to read a book that probably said, wives, submit to your husband. I mean, I'm just not interested.
Well, I just think the women are usually much more knowledgeable in the Word in our culture today.
Yeah.
How would you parse being evenly yoked?
What'd you just say?
Well, let me rephrase. How would you define what it means to be evenly yoked?
Well, Bob, look that up. Can you do that? I mean, I can give my opinion. I suppose we could all give our opinions. Evenly yoked to me would be that my wife and I are the same. That, yes, I may have responsibilities she doesn't, and she may have responsibilities that I don't. But in the end, nobody's the boss.
Well, how do we bind teams of oxen or horse, cattle, when they're pulling a wagon?
They're evenly yoked.
They're evenly yoked. Because
and if they're unevenly yoked, then you're going to
have problems. But
Yeah.
something's pulling in one direction stronger than the other.
Yeah.
Right.
So I would define evenly yoked as you marry a woman, you have potentially equal education, equal in looks, equal in earning capability, so that one person doesn't have the distinct advantage over somebody else. Because
Right.
many times women feel, because of their lesser earning capabilities, they're trapped in a relationship with an overbearing, brutish man that they can't seem to leave because they can't make it on their own financially.
Mm-hmm.
See, I just...
Okay, let me give you something here. It says actually
By the way, Jill King says she knows where you can buy a Bible, Frank.
It says actually the phrase equally yoked is not even in the Bible. Corinthians 6:14 says, "Be ye not unequally yoked
Yeah.
with unbelievers." It doesn't say relationships, it doesn't say marriage, but its implication is that of any relationship with another person.
Don't be unevenly yoked.
Unequally yoked.
Unequally
Be ye
yoked.
not unequally yoked.
So in other words,
With
be evenly
unbelievers.
yoked with every relationship you're in.
Well, with believers. It's talking about don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers.
Well, let me give you a classic example. Let's say you're in a business relationship with an atheist, and you want
In there.
to observe the Sabbath in your business, and the atheist doesn't feel like observing the Sabbath in the business. He wants to keep it open. So
Good, then he can work.
Well, no, but the point would be that you're in a relationship where you're unevenly yoked with someone.
I got you. All right. Let's take our first break. It's your voice we want to hear. 244-0077. 244-0077. Or you can jump on Webcast One Live, WEBCASTONE live.com, and join the chat as Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat, is watching the chat. We're coming back. Ephesians 5:21, this afternoon's Bible study.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, good afternoon, 21 minutes after the hour. We are on a Friday Bible study. If you're listening to this on a podcast, it may not be Friday. And if you're listening to this live on the radio and you say, Mr. Max fallen off the wagon, it's not Friday. My guess is this will be a good show. It started out good, and so it'll be under the best of category. And when there's no one to fill in and I'm sick or I'm gone on a trip or it's a holiday, then we come back and run some of these best ofs. And obviously what we're talking about today is timeless. Society is not going to come in and change the way husbands and wives are going to treat each other. Wrong. It's really changed over decades, hasn't it? You know, when you think about it, there was a period of time when we could be talking about this really from another direction. That men, you can be mouthy to your wives or abusive emotionally. There was a time and era in our time when you could probably even, and the thought of this just drives me crazy, but that it was acceptable in society to strike your wife when she was quote unquote out of line. Now, I got to tell you, if you're listening today and this is the first time you're listening, I hope you're listening carefully, because there's not a man in this room that feels that should be that way. In fact, if anything, Ryan came in over the break and kind of made sure that I knew that I was kind of soft pedaling the submit thing, because there are other definitions within the Greek interpretation that says to submit, to obey. And I want to read one now. And again, this is from a website, God's Word to Women. Now let's directly address Paul and Peter. When they were using the word submit, they were giving Christians a way of coping within a cultural hostile to the teachings of Jesus. Paul writes, subjecting yourself one to another in the fear of Christ. Peter likewise addressed the same social situations, writing, Yea, all of you be subject to another, and be clothed with humility. 1 Peter 5:5. Being subject to or subjecting ourselves to another one with mutual respect, one for the other, and it should not convey the loss of one's rights to make choices. It should not be taught as an attitude or action required only for women in relation to husbands or any male figure in which they are evenly yoked.
There's a creation order, right? And it's God's plan, and it's the best plan.
Well, and it gets into this down here that there are some people, and Ryan made this comment too, that, and see, Ryan's never been married. Ryan, have you ever even had a girlfriend? Not really. Not really.
So-
All right. But I tell you what, if you've got a daughter or a granddaughter who's in her early 20s and she's looking for a Christ-centered man to spend time with, I couldn't recommend anybody better than my producer, Ryan. But with that being said, there are people who feel that because God made male first, saw that he was lonely, and therefore took something from the male, a rib, to create the woman, the womb man, the
Right.
man with a womb, helpmate, that the male should be superior. And I don't find anywhere in the Bible where that backs up, unless you want to get really crappy and run with the snake handlers. I mean, I think that's what you've got to do. I think if you really think as a male you've got some cut above your wife, emphasized in the Bible, then you're probably the guy that runs and grabs snakes and holds them in church and says, "Look, they can't hurt me."
Well, we're all equal in Christ.
Yeah.
Male and female.
Yeah, no difference in color of your skin, no difference in anything. Frank?
Well, it's key that Eve was, or woman, I shouldn't say Eve. Bible doesn't describe her as Eve until later.
Oh, we all know her as Eve. Just call her Eve.
Okay, Eve. Eve was created from the side, the rib of Adam. That's significant in that signifies to me she was meant to be his equal.
Right.
She was not-
walk side by side.
She was not to rule over his head, nor be trampled under by his feet.
Absolutely. Right.
So it's only because of sin and rebellion that we're even discussing Ephesians 5:21 and 22.
Right.
Because at some point, you can't have two A-type personalities. Somebody has to submit to the other, because you can't have two strong-willed A-type personalities ruling the roost.
Right.
So God designed a pecking order, in essence, but he expressly said that woman was to submit to the man, but likewise man was to submit to Christ.
And to give his life to her like Christ gave
his
himself
life.
for the church.
Yes.
So this male-female marital relationship describes how God relates to the church. And something I'm going to share with you guys that I learned a little bit too late
Okay,
in
hold
life.
on. Wisdom alert, wisdom alert. It's a Frank DeVerse wisdom alert. Sound the horns. Woo! Okay, we're listening.
I
Well,
forgot
it's-
it now.
It's this idea that man exclusively is in charge of the romantic tone, the forgiveness level in the household. This is not the woman's duty. It's not the woman's responsibility. As the church never offers the olive branch to God, it's God that always coming wooing the church. So what I didn't learn till too late was never let the sun go down on
your
an
wrath.
argument in your home, because it is your responsibility as a man to make sure that argument is settled and taken care of before the sun falls, because what will happen is a woman's heart will become bruised. A bruised heart will become a cool heart, a cold, an uncaring heart, a cold heart, and from there on, all bets are off.
Right.
Wisdom from Frank the Verse Thomas
So,
is available on Amazon for 2 cents plus shipping and handling.
oh, it's not free?
Just write Frank the Verse Thomas Wisdom, Box 666.
Oh, gee, really?
Anybody on the chat asking any questions?
Army Brad, he's just making fun of, no.
All right, 244-0077. Don't tell me you don't have a thought on this.
How do we, Mac, let me ask this. I'm just throwing it out there. How do we submit to the Lord? What does that mean? What does that look like?
How do we submit to the Lord?
Obedience.
I think considering others more important than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jesus said, if you have not done it unto the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you have not done it unto me. So, you know, as you serve others, you see them through the lens of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So you
So-
you may not get along with a personality. You may not get along with how a person treats you. But if you always look at that person through the eyes of Christ, you'll want to treat that person created in the image of God with all the respect you can.
So do we do that?
By,
Do we do that?
Do we do what?
What Jim
we can
just said.
only do it through God's grace.
So the answer is no.
His ability.
Right. So we can't really submit to the Lord.
Well, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, but it's only
So he has to do it in us.
it's got to be a Christian, spiritual understanding gifted from the Lord himself,
So we can do all things through Christ.
who strengthens up. He works in us both to will and to do of his good pleasure. But you cannot legislate morality.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make a law and this is the way you're supposed to treat one another.
So
It has to be in this God-given, created plan of God for marriage.
So again, if we're the ones that must submit as a man
Right.
to the Lord, and yet we can't really do it without the Lord doing it through
Working
us,
in and through you.
the same would apply to a wife, that they cannot do that on their own just because it says submit.
And you
They
and you-
can't.
Well, and you do make a good point. I think a lot of Christian couples are struggling because they're not in the Word. They're not praying together and learning, going to Bible studies together and growing in the grace and the knowledge of the Lord. And as the two are united in Christ, as we read at the end of this chapter 5 of Ephesians, you see it's all to the glory of God. It's God's gift to people.
244-0077. That's 515-244-0077. You can't tell me you don't have a thought on this. You're driving down the road. You're sitting there at work. You're listening to this. I know you want to call.
Well,
I just can't. I can't. And I especially can't believe I don't have a female calling to put their 2 cents in here, because I think it's important. I don't like the fact. I'm sorry, guys, but I don't like the fact we're all guys in this conversation. But I invited several women, and it's tough to be on the radio. Well, it's not easy. So
here's the other thing I want to bring up too, because the Bible says things like "fear not." That's in there. I don't know how many times.
Right.
Casting all your cares, be anxious for nothing. How many of us? It's a command that we should be, right? How many of us can actually do that?
no.
So when you see things like submit or saying that to the wives, it's not. I think it's something that you must ask for the Lord to be able to do.
Very good point.
But I don't think you can generate all of this yourself. It's not anything that you
Right.
can do yourself.
Command what you will and then grant what you command. That's a prayer to God.
Yeah, it's the Lord has to do it in you.
Right.
He's the one that takes away the fear. He's the one that you can cast.
And then
your
he gets
cares
all
on.
the glory for it.
Exactly.
Well, godly marriage.
Would you agree, Bob, that we're obviously talking to believers here? Because
Right.
a unbelieving woman or man, either one, is going to think this is baloney.
Sure, because you're reading it as an order, a command that you have to do when we can't do it. You see, on our own.
And the Christian life is submitting to Christ,
Right.
His will, not our will.
Right.
And so you're right. That's really how the marriage order can really work. When you first know Christ, by being born of the spirits, your spiritual eyes are opened. You want to please Him, and this gift of marriage is then where two people become one, and that's a mystery that we'll read about near the end of the chapter there.
Well, and yeah, go ahead.
Now, can I be a real pain in the pocket and just
Oh, like
ask,
something new? Hey, Ryan, something new.
can I just ask rhetorically, does the redefinition of marriage throw this all out of context?
Well, I think you.
Well, I mean,
I think you were saying, this is really applying to Christian marriages.
yeah, God did not redefine marriage.
Well,
Man did.
Exactly.
That's like hot wiring a car. It's not supposed to work that way, but you cheated and got it to work that way.
But there will be people who will come to pastors trying to force them into marriage counseling that a pastor may not want to counsel.
Well, I'll be honest with you. If I'm in seminary right now, I'm scared to death. The accuser is running amok on this dirt, and he's trying to make everything so confusing. All right, listen. When we come back, let's finish up this chapter. But then I want to back up a little bit later, and I want to go to another verse, and we'll hit that either in the middle of this or in the last segment. And the other one I want to talk about is, well, I'll tell you a little bit later. For right now, when we come back, how they are to be married and become as one, and the husband and wife are one body, proved to be in Scripture. Wow. What does that mean? We'll talk about it next, live on the Bible Study here on The Truth, 99.3.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid,
I am Bernie Hobbs,
and I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 22 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network news at 3 o'clock. And then at 3:03, the Steve Deace. Back in the market, live in Afternoon Drive, right here on 99.3 KTIA. All right, we're in Ephesians 5, and we started with 21. Now, where are you going to pick up at, Jim?
Oh, I can't remember. How far did you read down
31.
to?
Start with 31.
Okay, you're going pretty far through here. In verse 31, it says, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband."
All right. We've got a phone call coming in. I'm waiting to find out who it is, and then we will take a phone call today. Let's just get it on the air. Hi, you're live on the air on The View from the Pew. Who's this?
Hi, this is Ben Johnson. I'm actually a ordained minister at the Assemblies of God. I'm from Minnesota, and I'm driving through the area today.
Well, thank you for driving through our area.
Absolutely.
Are you on vacation?
No, I'm actually helping my brother moving him back to Minnesota, to the Promised Land.
Oh, sure, right, yeah. We're losing another Lutheran, aren't we?
No.
So, what do you think about this conversation?
Yeah. You know, it's as far as the whole marriage thing and the order of things with the man and the woman. You know, we live in a culture and society that's so much about self. And I know a lot of people who get married and they're, what can this person do for me? And any person who gets married with those intentions is going to find that marriage is not going to be fun. I've been married. I've only been married now for about coming up on 3 years here soon. But what I've found is when I choose to live a selfless life and to serve my wife and to put her before myself, that's when marriage is good. And like you guys have been talking about, wives, submit your husbands. Right before that, submit yourselves then to one another. And it's in marriage when we choose to submit ourselves to each other. Then you of course have the order that God gave as far as the man, kind of being the leader in the relationship. And I see that as a sense of, we have that role, that responsibility, but we aren't supposed to lead in a sense of just ruling over your wife. Jesus taught, don't lead like the rest of the world leads, where leaders will rule it over people. Mm-hmm. Instead, you're supposed to lead like I do and serve people. If we follow Jesus' example, which is what we're supposed to do, our marriage is going to be amazing.
Right.
All right, I want to thank you for driving through town, and thank you for committing your life to Christ and to his service, and be willing to be a pastor to come along those of us that need pastoring. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Frank?
I wanted to reinforce maybe something the caller said. Basically, somebody gave me some counsel when I was a young guy that said, an older married couple told me, if you are in a relationship and you will give 80%, take 20 for yourself, and the other person will give 80 and take 20 for themselves, everybody's getting 100% in the relationship. But what happens is when you're taking 100 and giving nothing, or the other person is taking 100 and giving nothing, that's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
Now, I don't know how to parse that into an exact formula, but it's the idea that you give more than you receive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I want to echo with that gentleman, and I hope he's still listening. I wish I would have said this to him when he was on the phone, but I found out not too late, but I sure wish I would have treated my wife better years ago, because what that man said right there is the key to a happy marriage.
Right.
Give your wife everything, not give, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Support her in every way that you possibly can, even giving of yourself, surrendering yourself to him. And I think that's when Jesus comes down and really puts a special blessing on a marriage.
Right.
No marriages are perfect. I mean, cats and dogs should not be living together.
No.
I mean, it's interesting because I don't know where in the Bible. I mean, it said here, man and woman, God joined, become one flesh, da-da-da. Nowhere did it say take up the same address. Nowhere did it say live in the same cave. I'm not sure we weren't supposed to meant to, have the husbands on one side of the village and the wives on the other, and then have a little hotel or something in the middle.
Well, I think it's key in the King James Version that it says a man shall leave his mother and a woman shall leave her home. That doesn't sound like a suggestion to me. I mean, that sounds like a command. It sounds like an order that we're supposed to be social creatures. We're supposed to be family-oriented. And so it tells me that the marriage relationship is fundamentally a foundation of the family. It's not just a pleasure-oriented union. So these people that want to think that marriage is just what you can do for me and looking at it from a selfish lens, they're going to fail.
That's a good point.
244-0077 if you're wanting to call today, 515-244-0077. The end of that reading and 33 in the chapter 5 of Ephesians says, so again I say a man must love his wife as a part of himself, and the wife must see to it that she deeply respects her husband, obeying, praising, and honoring him. It goes both ways. If I don't respect my wife, if I don't deeply respect my wife, if I don't obey her, I obey my wife. Does that make me a wussy? Does that make me whipped? Okay, guilty. But I obey my wife. What crazy husband doesn't? That's just it. He's a crazy husband. Oh, you're not the head of this household. I am. No, I'm sorry. If you're thinking about getting married and you think you're going to be the head of the household and wear the pants, don't get married. It won't end up well. Only a couple lawyers will get anything out of it.
But have you seen some women take advantage of that situation also?
Well, sure. It's not just men that take advantage of it.
Whipped men.
Yeah.
But I think if you find some of the greatest successful pastors that we've ever heard speak, they will always tell you that a lot of their success is because of their wives, who prayed for them and supported them in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm just learning what a Christ-filled marriage looks like. I'm just learning that.
Well, you look at a Billy Graham for all those years that he traveled, and his wife was just rock solid, and she would pray for him. And
well, here's the opposite of that. Now, Richard Petty's wife said once, or Richard Petty actually said this.
I love this. This is a great line.
When asked that he told his wife the day he married her that he loved her, and if anything changed, he'd let her know.
That was pretty disrespectful.
Now that was kind of an offhand joke, and I'm sure that's not the way the marriage went.
Yeah.
But the idea is men look at it as I've conquered this, I've won this, I'm done working. And if a guy would spend as much time with his wife as he does on his hobbies, waxing and polishing, cleaning, detailing his cars, his rims, his tires, if he would spend that time on his woman, maintaining the marriage. And what I learned again too late was men are practical. A woman wants something, so I'm going to get her a potted plant that will give her beauty day after day after day. A woman wants cut flowers because she wants to be continually pursued, continually chased. And she's going to hit that guy at that potted plant because she wants those flowers today. They're gone tomorrow. And then you got to rebuild that romance and relationship all over.
All right, we're going to come back for our last segment. I want to hit Ephesians 5:11. Take no part in the worthless pleasures of evil and darkness, but instead rebuke and expose them. Really? Is Jesus telling us to be a tattletale? We'll talk about that next when we come back live here on The Truth.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 10 minutes for the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News at the top of the hour, and then at 3:03, the Steve Deace, live, back at Afternoon Drive here on The Truth, 99.3 KTIA. All right, before we get to 511, we have a chatter on the chat. We have a poster on the chat at webcastonelive.com who has a question.
Yeah, the question is, what does one do in our culture if your spouse abandons your marriage and their vows?
Well, I know what I'd like to do, but what's the Bible say we do?
Can we all agree that divorce is too easy in this country?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, actually, what's too easy is marriage. We should make marriage harder because in the divorce isn't the problem. That's not where you go wrong. That's not where the guilt and shame should come from, is that I'm divorced. The guilt, well, you shouldn't have guilt and shame at all, but the challenge should be I didn't do what I needed to do up front to determine that I was ready to get into this marriage. That's why it's so important to do Christian marriage counseling. Mm-hmm. But I got to tell you, when I did my Christian marriage counseling with my first wife, I smoked right through that baby. I just wanted to marry her. I didn't care what the pastor said. I didn't care. Mm-hmm. I didn't care. But yes, I would agree with you. The divorce is too easy to get, but it's the marriage that ought to be harder to get.
Sure.
It ought to be harder to have a Christian marriage. I think I can't. You could never make a law about it. And if a young couple in a church, what I was about to say is I think you ought to have a year engagement minimum. And I think that year ought to be planned out, not like boot camp, but really close to it when it comes to your marriage and both of you, et cetera, et cetera.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Frank. You just got to interrupt.
Well, let me ask you this pertinent, tough question. If we can't forgive each other in our marriages, how do we expect God to forgive us?
Well, it says, as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. So the Bible says that she's deserted you, to the chatter, to the poster. She's deserted you, and therefore you hold no law to her. You will not be bound by any law or covenant within that marriage, and that you have done nothing wrong by leaving it, by finding another and getting remarried. I mean, the Bible's pretty clear about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in marriage and divorce, and we have totally rearranged that. totally abandon what God said. Myself included.
He only allowed it out of the hardness of people's hearts. And clearly there was instructions about how to go about it, and I don't think most people are following that. I think people should be entering into marriage counseling first and foremost, but they're entering into relationships with other people and divorce way too quick, and society is putting their stamp on this by no-fault divorce.
Well, once again, it's the lawyers. It's greed. Lawyers can make money off divorce. They can't make money off marriage. If somehow we could make it expensive to get married through lawyers, then the lawyers would figure out how to make a better marriage. And then you know what you do if the marriage doesn't work out? You sue the lawyer. He's responsible. Tort reform my behind. All right, let's go to 511 for just a second, because this one's always bugged me. Always bugged me. 511, take no part in the worthless pleasures of evil and darkness. I got that. You got that, Jimmy? That makes sense, right? Take no part. What does your version say?
Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them.
What's your version say, Robert?
And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Right. But instead rebuke and expose them. Now, see, this messes me up, because this says that I ought to be able to say to anybody I want on the radio, person to person, belly to belly, eyeball to eyeball, on Facebook, whatever, hey, right over here, this guy's doing evil and darkness. Wasn't that the exact term? Evil and darkness. I'm going to rebuke that. In other words, I'm going to hold it up, and I'm going to rebuke it by saying that's wrong. Biblically, that's wrong. That's the only rebuke only works if you go to the Bible when you rebuke somebody. You can't rebuke somebody because you don't like the color purple and they got a purple shirt on.
It sounds like to me you can openly rebuke a backbiting gossiper.
Perhaps you can. And expose them. So not only are we to rebuke them, you're supposed to put a sign on your mailbox for the neighborhood to see that, or whatever it is.
Well,
I mean, is that what that means, Robert? Am I just too vigilante?
Yeah, you are.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
But I think you also have to consider that this, I think they're talking to believers, the body. Mm-hmm. It's not just the unbelievers. And so there has to be, and it says in my version, which, of course, the one I have is right, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. It says where did I lost myself here, 11. Yeah, it says have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. So
have no fellowship with the unfruitfulness of darkness.
Right. So don't even, if you see darkness, don't even associate with them.
Don't hang around with them.
Don't hang around with them. So that's kind of what it's saying here, but rather expose them. Now, again, that if it's in the body, if you remember, Paul was telling the church that they should expose this guy's sin that was having an affair, whatever, somebody in the church.
Right.
And so, in that sense, that was exposed. And he was told to go out, and he said, don't associate with that person. Don't fellowship with that person.
But what you're saying is the key to this conversation is it goes within the church. If this is somebody outside the church,
that's another story.
The Bible's not. Well, what does the Bible say about that?
Well,
nothing?
Share the gospel with them so that they come into the church, brother.
Okay.
Then deal with them.
And then deal with them.
But initially,
if you join
share
our
the
church,
gospel.
I can rebuke you.
No, it's not. It's not joining the church.
Oh.
It's becoming a believer.
Okay, so become a believer, and then I can rebuke you.
Exactly, if they don't change.
Oh, but they're going to change when they become a believer.
Exactly.
That's what Jesus does to
Exactly.
them. Ah, shoot.
But God has to make you a believer. So
that's right.
Yeah, through His Word.
All right. Well, I've got that little bit of character defect called vengeance left in me, and I can just hear Him chipping that away, just like you go up to a marble statue and chink, chink, and chink, chink, and it's starting to all fall off. Oh, my. All right, Jim Bear, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Mac.
As always, I appreciate it. Jimmy and I are part of Bible study on Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, and Thursday morning at Lutheran Church of Hope. It's for men and men only, and you are always welcome. It is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Frank, the verse Thomas, I'm gonna put a red light camera up in here, and if the red light's on, your mouth can't talk. But you added good today. Thanks, Robert. Thanks for being here and watching the chat. Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat, watching the chat. Of course, Ryan producing. Well, it's Friday. That means we're off on another weekend. We'll see you tomorrow, 12 noon, with Tamara Scott. No, tomorrow, 12 noon is with Tom Coates. and the replay of our show earlier this week with Will Rogers. And great programming, Caffeinated Thoughts tomorrow morning, live from the Path tomorrow. Just great weekend programming, a lot of it local. We want more of it to be local. If you think that you've got something that God has touched you in your life and you want to share it on a weekly basis on the radio, we're always looking for good quality programs, and just contact us here at The Truth. Until then, you know what I'm going to say. It's a long weekend. See if you can get it done this weekend. Think of somebody you need to forgive. Would you, please? I know it's the one you said you'd never forgive, but this weekend, forgive that one. Because as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. I'll see you at church.